I know it's right before dinner, and you've had lots of exciting speakers and panels, and so we're going to get your blood pumping. Hopefully, everybody on this panel will say at least 3 things that angers somebody in this room. We'll absolutely do our best. It's a nice, diverse panel from the all political spectrums and ready to go. My name is Caprice Young. I am the VP of Education for the Laura and John Arnold Foundation. We're kind of the new kids on the block. The foundation has really only been actively funding for about 4 years. And so we come to this sort of the right combination probably of arrogance and ignorance to get ourselves in a lot of trouble. And we're hoping that this panel here will allow us to get beyond thinking about more money, vouchers, and testing, and really talk about some of the comprehensive reforms and best practices that are happening nationally and how those can impact Texas. I'd like to kick us off by asking Senator Patrick, you've taken on the reins of this committee with bold strokes. How is it that you came to take on such a comprehensive package, and why are you taking on such a comprehensive package as opposed to just doing some tweaking?
You inspired me. There you go.
No.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you. I love education, first of all. You have to be passionate about a subject, especially something that is so complex as education is on the finance level as well as the policy side. I enjoyed as much as I enjoy watching an NFL game, which made me think there was really something wrong, and looking at all player stats. So I just love it, every aspect of it, number one. Number two, when you love something, you really study it. And as I studied it and asked questions and met people and traveled around the country and around the state, it was clear that in Texas, we're not doing all that we can do and all that we should do in terms of giving us the best education in the country, which I think we're capable of doing. Third, 20% of our students drop out. 20% of our students are graduating with a minimum degree that's not worth very much. That's 40% of all 17, 18-year-old graduation age students in Texas that have no future. Not only is that immoral for that family and that student, because the American or Texas dream is a quality job, and you can't have a quality job without a quality education. So not only are we stealing the dream of an individual early on in their life, but we are hurting the opportunity for Texas to continue to be the economic engine that it is today. So on multiple levels, you step into this position, and as Condoleezza Rice said at a conference that we attended in Washington, we don't have time for an evolution. We need a revolution. This whole idea of more money, we can fix the bad schools, and money is important if used strategically in the right way. But the whole idea that we can turn a school around in 4 years, maybe we can. It hasn't been done in decades in many of our schools. But what about those kids who are there today? So while we're fixing the plane, we have to fly it. We can't say, okay, we're going to pour all this money in, and over the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to solve these problems. First of all, there's no guarantee that we will based on past performance. And number two, what about those kids who are there now? That's just a whole nother generation of failures. So we have a luxury this session. I look at challenges as opportunities because of the school lawsuit. We're not spending a lot of time, which we normally would, on finance. We have a lot of time to focus on policy. And so we're really digging deep into policy. We've had good informational hearings. So we're looking, what do we need to do? We need innovation, we need rigor, we need transparency, we need empowerment, we need flexibility for districts, for principals, for teachers, for parents, for children. Let's break away from this model that is not only not working in many areas, but isn't even relevant for where we are today. Online learning, we should be championing because that's the future. Charters, we need to lift the cap and let the great ones grow and bring the great ones into our state and close the bad ones. We need choice. Go to any public school that you want to go, inter-district, intra-district. There's so many options. The business tax credit. I spoke at Rice University yesterday at the Baker Institute on this issue. We already have choice. If you're rich enough, you send your child to any school you want. And if you're mobile enough, you move to the suburbs. Why do people move to whether it's Tomball or Plano or Frisco or wherever it is and sit in traffic for an hour? Not because they like that. They do it for their kids. They ask the realtor, what about this school district? But if you're poor and you live in the inner city, which is mostly minority parents, and you're a single mom and you depend on taking the bus to work, you're not mobile, you can't move to a better school district, and you don't have the money to send your child to a private school. How can we say to that woman or that grandmother or that guardian or that mom and dad, I'm sorry, you don't have enough zeros in your checkbook. You don't have choice. So let's, since there's such an objection to public money following to private schools, the business tax credit allows businesses to put up money that they could save through the business tax credit or their own money to help students. So at the end of the day, we need to set up a structure in this state, like today. If all of you in this room, and I bet a lot of people would, you'd like to help a child who's ready to go, you know, because they couldn't find a charter, they couldn't find the right public school, whatever the issue is, they want this chance. There are a lot of people in here who would say, I'll write that check for about $5,000 a year, K through 8. I said this at Rice yesterday. My wife and I will write the first check. Okay, not because we're trying to be noble, because it's just the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do. We'll find foundations and we'll find businesses and we'll find individuals in the state who will fund this in addition to the business tax credit, or if we can't get the votes for that. But we cannot sit back on the sideline and say, you lose. 43%, as Governor Bush will tell you, 43% of all children born in poverty die in poverty, and the dividing line is education. And there is no excuse for us to sit on the sidelines when we can make a difference today. No excuse. And we will pay for it in the future if we do not act now. So that's the reason. Let's take it all on. We might not pass 100% of it, but we're going to get 75, 85, or 90% of it. Come heck or high water. Here you go.
There you go. Thank you for setting stage, and thank you for giving us the appropriate sense of urgency around this. The next speakers that you're going to hear are folks who have taken on pieces of this in other states and who have experience with best practices that are happening in other states. So we're going to start with Florida. Patricia, you guys have made tremendous gains in Florida. Could you take a minute to speak to what those gains have been, and also about what the suite of policies that have led to those gains, and if there's any real driver or backbone? I know I'm not supposed to put 3 questions in one question, but there you go.
Sure. So I might have a slide. I don't know if it's loaded up, and of course it'll be a little bit hard for you to see. So I was invited to come to the state of Texas, and I was going to be very, very polite in my conversations, except Caprice started and said I needed to offend the audience, so I will do so. This data just came out last week. It is NAEP data. NAEP test is the only test that all 50 states participate in. This particular report was a report on all the mega states, on the very, very large states, looking at how much progress had been made on reading among the large states. And you can see Florida, which is the third bar from the left, has made the most gains. In fact, what the NAEP report identified, the only mega state that made statistically significant gains in reading in 4th grade. And I think what Caprice was talking about the results that have been occurring in Florida, in 1998, the year before we started our comprehensive set of reforms, we were third from the bottom. Third from the bottom. We were thankful for Mississippi and Alabama keeping us from being at the bottom. But now Florida's 4th grade students have made so much progress that they're 11th in the country based on the 2011 NAEP data. And if you look at the growth and progress of subgroups, we are in the top 5 in almost every single subgroup. So for example, closing the achievement gap between rich and poor, we're 5th in the country. Between black and white, 4th in the country. Between students with disabilities, 1st in the country in closing that achievement gap. And Caprice is right. What we did in 1999 was a comprehensive set of reforms. We didn't just do a voucher bill, which is what we're known for that year, is doing the first statewide voucher. We did a lot of reforms that ranged from testing and school accountability, measurement, funding reforms, aligning incentives to the behavior that you want to see occur, to school choice and other reforms. And our motto has been that success is never final and reform is never finished. So every year we tackle another set of reforms to build upon what we have done previously. And that is because something that I've heard my boss, Governor Bush, say a lot, which is reform is hard and the status quo is like gravity. If you're going up a very steep hill, if you stop moving forward, gravity will pull you backwards. And so if your state doesn't continue to push the envelope on reforms, status quo will start setting in. And Caprice, asked kind of, I think, third part of her question is, what were some of the foundations of the reforms? One was reading reform, something that we copied from Texas. Governor Bush actually sent our reading office director to Texas to study what what Texas had done, and we stole a lot of great ideas and implemented them in the state. But one of the biggest reforms that was done was simply grading schools A, B, C, D, F. Now, I'm going to ask in this room for a show of hands. Who has heard of A, B, C, D, F, the nomenclature? And how many people understand A and B is good, D and F is bad, and C means there's a lot of room for improvement? So how many in this room know how many levels of performance Texas schools are rated on? 3, 4, 5, or 6? Anybody? You know what the nomenclature is for Texas. I had to write it down. It's exemplary, recognized, academically acceptable, academically unacceptable. I was in Virginia with Governor McDonnell in January of this year, and their nomenclature was fully accredited, accredited, conditionally accredited, accredited with warning, denied accreditation. In Ohio, it's a 5-star system. In Mississippi, it's a star system, but it was a 7-star system. So how do parents really know what's going on in their school? Simply changing the nomenclature to A, B, C, D, F will provide transparency, even though individuals and moms and dads may not understand what goes into the calculation. That transparency will create a reaction. It will create parental involvement. You go across the state, talk to principals, what do they want? They want parental involvement. That's what teachers say they want. Grading schools A, B, C, D, F will get parental involvement. They may regret that they wanted that parental involvement, but there will be parental involvement. Oklahoma recently passed the law to grade their schools A through F. The first year that they released A through F grades, they had 25,000 more hits on their website than the number of students that are in their public education system. How many website hits does Texas get when you release your ratings? I don't know, who knows? In Florida, we had the exact same effect. In fact, there's a story that I can tell about Governor Bush's chief of staff one year who went to a bank one day, was waiting in line to be waited on by a bank teller, and he saw these 2 moms just not, the line was kind of growing and they weren't serving the customers, and he listened. He saw these 2 moms huddled around a computer, and all of a sudden they high-fived each other. These 2 moms were celebrating that they were waiting online and found out that their school had just gotten a B. That type of reaction and community engagement is something that is unparalleled, and I'm really thrilled to hear that Texas and Senator Patrick may be pursuing A through F grading. Yes. There are 11 states now. Virginia just passed the law to grade schools A through F earlier this week, and it's headed to Governor McDonnell. So 11 states are following down this path of making your school accountability system more clear and transparent. When you do that, be ready for the pushback. Be ready for superintendents to say, it's not fair. 1 letter grade simply cannot capture all the performance that's going on in the school. Do they complain about that now with the term academically acceptable? No, because nobody pays attention to what academically acceptable means. If you give that school a C or a D, parents will care, the newspapers will care, the community will care. School board members if you have single-member districts like we do in Florida on the north side of town, will now care what's going on in the south side school. So we did lots of reforms, and I could go on and on talking about many of them. A through F grading was probably the foundational reform that allowed us to start aligning incentives, reward systems, consequences, really tied to that, the A through F system.